And how was life for you growing up, and how did you actually discover the religion of Islam?
So yeah, man, alhamdulillah, I've been a Muslim now for some 15 years. I can always count my Islam through my firstborn, as you know, I had after becoming Muslim, you know, within the first year or so, I got married to my wife, and we had our firstborn child, who is 15 years old now, turning 16 at the end of this year. So it always gives me a good way to kind of gauge my Islam and how long I've been Muslim. Alhamdulillah, we accepted Islam, I'd say, at a time where there was a lot of turmoil in the area that I grew up, especially amongst a lot of different sections of young men. Where we grew up, especially in Brixton, Peckham, South London, it was difficult. There was a lot of gang violence, a lot of beef, a lot of things were going on. And alhamdulillah, like there's a lyric that Muslim Bilal says in one of his nasheeds, and he says that something about Allah came to the ghetto and turned the gangster boys who used to walk around with metal, something. But it always, whenever I hear his nasheed, it reminds me, and I laugh, is that, you know, it's something like Allah sent his angels into the ghetto. And it was a profound statement, because without a shadow of a doubt, it was a time where a lot of us young men at that time in South London needed guidance. A lot of us needed a sense of direction, and sometimes it comes in strange ways. And I feel like a few of us, as I think you sometimes get that stigma of young men becoming Muslim and not taking it serious. But I think within life, you know, there's always the odds that you got to beat. And I think looking back at it now, when I get to see 15 years on from that group of core young men who became Muslim, and I'm still able to have conversations with over a dozen of them, and they're still here practicing Islam with their families. You know, a lot of us, alhamdulillah, managed to hold on and managed to get through. And I feel like it's never easy. You know, I liken it to a football academy where you grow up with your peers, and not everyone gets to make it to the Premier League. You know what I mean? Not everyone gets to make it to the big lights. And I feel like on that journey, yes, we did lose a few of the brothers and sisters looking back. But alhamdulillah, a lot of us are still here practicing, pushing strong, raising our families, living a Muslim lifestyle. And yeah, it was just difficult, man. I guess growing up, you know, it was right around 2010 or just before then, 2008. It was just kind of difficult in South London as a whole. Very difficult time. And just maneuvering and having to understand who we were. And I think what happened at that time as well, a lot of the young men had a lot of passion for the religion. And I feel like our backgrounds kind of molded and shaped us and prepared us for what was to come. I think, you know, the Jahiliyyah that we lived kind of molded us, because we also accepted Islam in a time where, you know, the Twin Towers and terrorist attacks were taking place all over the world. It wasn't favorable to join this or to become a Muslim. It wasn't really the cool thing to do within society. So you had to have, you know, thick skin. You had to have strong backbone to then embrace a religion and go back to your family members and be like, oh, hey, guys, I'm Muslim. You know, a lot of people had difficulties.
I guess in a way, you know, from what I took from your story there, or some of it, you know, sometimes Allah almost prepares us with some of the experiences that we had before for what comes next. And, you know, obviously that resilience that you grew up, where you grew up, maybe that was, you know, to some degree a preparation for that resilience you needed to stay firm upon Islam. And I was speaking to another brother as well. He's also from South London. I think maybe quite a lot older than you and I. And he and actually some of his friends, they all became Muslim together. And I think that it was a great blessing in a way, because so many of them embraced at a similar time. It meant that they had that kind of like almost support network, where if you were just by yourself, you'd be a lot more isolated. I mean, was that something that was you think was a help, the fact that you had other people, your peers, who were also embracing at the same time?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, I think it was. I think having that support network, having brothers who I looked at as some of the best of friends that I had in that period of time in Jahiliyyah, people who I think had a bit more to them. I feel like in Jahiliyyah, there was a few people who they didn't really have more to them as characters other than just being, just causing mischief and kind of being troublesome. I didn't think they had more to them. I think there was a few people that I grew up with who had another level to them, who done more away from just being on the block with the mandem. So they had more lived experiences, had traveled the world. Their parents had taken them abroad. They had gone on family holidays. And I think those small lived experiences are the difference between those who kind of see a broader scale of life to those that don't. Because if you're growing up on the block and you're all in a gang and you're just all mischievous on the block, but some of you have gone on family holidays to different parts of the world and have had that experience to realize, that the world is bigger than the block that I'm chilling on. So when you have family members, or even though a lot of us are coming from single parent households at the time, I feel like having that experience with family and then coming back to the block will kind of make you realize that, there's more to it. As for the children or the young people we grew up with who had never been on holiday, never got on a plane, their brain was very narrow. You know what I'm saying? Their thinking was very narrow and didn't have that type of foresight to realize that there's more to do. So some of those friends who had, a bit more lived experience were some of the people that I grew up with and embraced Islam. And even some of my friends, like example, Abu Bakr rose to Islam, who came from the Gambia at a good age. Sorry, he came to the UK from the Gambia around 10 years old, just leaving primary school. He had enough experience to realize there was a difference between where he grew up and where he was born in the Gambia to where he was at in the UK. And that was enough for him when it was crunch time and time to make a decision on, well, what am I doing with my life? He had something to call back on, something to remember, like, well, life wasn't always like this. Why am I not taking full advantage in a situation that I should be? So that was important, man. So yeah, man, growing up in South London without glamorizing it too much was that type of lifestyle. It was difficult. So I feel like when we embraced Islam, I was around, I would say 20 years old when I embraced Islam. And at that time, it was a difficult period of time. But I feel like when I embraced Islam at that age, like I said, a lot of us had a lot of passion for the religion. A lot of us had a lot of love for the religion. So we ventured out. A lot of my peers at that time, the go-to place was to go to Egypt or to Yemen and to study Islam. I think a group of us who I grew up with, because we were more and really about this life in the streets, when we went away to these places, it wasn't even to study Islam as some of the peers or some of the people at the time that we knew were going, who were maybe born Muslim. For us, it was to live Islam. How is it to live? So while everyone was like, oh, yes, Arabic and Quran, and that was a part of it. But our thing was like, no, we've come here to get tarbiyah. We've come here to nurture ourselves because we only know how to live a certain type of life. We're here in Egypt, so we can live on a day-to-day basis, 24 hours a day as a Muslim, and only be known by our new names that we've taken on and our new descriptions and our new characters. We don't want to grow up or be in an area where people are still looking at you as what you grew up to be. We were really that man who killed 99 men, or 100 men, we should say, and was told to make that move out of that town. So we weren't then connected to what we were always known for. So a lot of us left. And alhamdulillah, we had a good period of time where a lot of us stayed in Egypt 3 to 4 years on average. And it allowed us to just kind of detox from the streets, from our environment, and then come back fully as a Muslim. Like, without no doubt, like for the last 3-4 years, I've lived as a Muslim. I've lived by the name Moosa. I'm no longer known. Like, everywhere I've gone, people are just, hey, Moosa. Like, Abu Abdul Shaheed, Moosa. So I've just got used to that. So then when I come back to the UK, it's weird hearing people calling me from what I used to be now. You know what I mean? I'm not really responding to that as quick as I used to. It's like, oh, right, hold on. Who's that? Someone shouting me. Because I just got used to being me. And I think that was important. And I think I saw that, and I saw the difference that made between a lot of us who embraced Islam that went and got that tarbiyah and those that didn't. Because our default setting was very different. Meaning when we would fall off deen, to us falling off deen, those that went and got that tarbiyah meant praying at home and not going to the masjid to do your prayers. That's how we, looked at, I need to get on my deen. And it's like, well, what's wrong? But you pray. Like those who, didn't go away, we were like, no, you pray, man, you're all right, man. Alhamdulillah. Like, nah, man, it's in the masjid more. That's not enough.
Yeah.
Whereas for them, falling off deen meant not praying. And that's because we didn't get the tarbiyah. For us, it meant not praying in the masjid. That's what Egypt felt for us, because we just come from a country where you just spent 3 or 4 years and all your salats are in the masjid. Now you're just back in the UK doing what you're doing and you're missing them and you're not praying a lot of them in your home and your heart's just not feeling right? So that was important to us at that period of time. And I feel like it was also a period of time that we kind of embraced that journey of also then wanting to give dawah to the people that we kind of left behind and the blocks that we came from.